Okay, so today we're going to be talking about coterminal angles. Think back to when we were talking about angles that are in standard position. You had the initial side that was on the x-axis in the positive direction, and you had your coterminal side that just ended somewhere else. So if these are coterminal angles, that means that there are multiple angles that end at the same terminal side, which is why it's coterminal. If you break the word down, co, multiple, terminal, where it terminates, so there's coterminal angles, they terminate at the same side. So like I just said, coterminal angles are two angles in standard position that have the same terminal side. So remember, in standard position, you have your initial side that's on the x-axis, terminal angle or terminal side that's just somewhere else. So let's look at this little example over here. So we have 120 degrees and negative 240 degrees that are coterminal angles. So let's just look at the 120 degrees first. You always start on the x-axis. And it's positive, so we're going counterclockwise. We go counterclockwise 120 degrees. You end up right there. There's our first angle. We're going to do the same thing with a negative 240 degrees. So if it's negative, you go clockwise, which means we're going to go backwards. And so we're going to go clockwise up to negative 240, and you end up at that same side. So they're coterminal, they terminate at the same spot. Okay, let's look at this. So we're going to sketch these two angles. We're going to sketch 135 and negative 225. So let's start with 135. Let's always start with just labeling our endpoints here. So this is 0 degrees, this is 90 degrees, this is 180 degrees, 270, then we can come back around. This is also 360 degrees, right? So if it's positive 135, you always, no matter what, we always start at the x-axis. 135 is more than 90, it's less than 180. And we know that 135 is 45 degrees more than 90. So we're going to go up to 90 and we're going to go past that 45 degrees. And we're going to end up right there. So that is going to be our angle that is 135 degrees. That's our angle in standard position. So let's graph the same, or not the same one, let's graph negative 225 now. So same thing, we're going to start on the x-axis, except this is negative, so we're going to go clockwise. So we're going to go clockwise 225 degrees. So if we go halfway, that's 180. But it's more than 180. It's 45 degrees more than 180. So we're just going to keep going. We're going to go around here, and we're going to end up at that same spot. So this is negative 225 degrees. They ended at the same spot, which means they are coterminal angles. So 135 and negative 225 are coterminal. Okay. And then you can add or subtract these, and if it's a multiple, or no, you can't add or subtract. You can subtract these, and if it's a multiple of 360, that's another way to tell if they're coterminal. So if we look and see that 135 minus negative 225 equals, so a minus, when you subtract a negative, that turns into a positive. So 135 plus 225 is 360, which is a multiple of 360, which is another way to tell if angles are coterminal. Okay, let's look at this. And we need to find other angles that are coterminal with 198. So basically, all we have to do is add a full rotation to 198. Think back to when I told you that a full rotation is 360 degrees. So all we really have to do is add or subtract 360 degrees to 198. So we can go 198 plus degrees plus 360 degrees, and you end up with 558 degrees. So that is one angle that is coterminal with 198. Another way we could do it is we could go 198 and subtract 360 degrees. And that would give us negative 162 degrees, which is another angle that is coterminal with 180, or 198. I'm sorry, words are really hard sometimes. Another way you could do it is you could add 360 multiple times. So you could go 198 plus 360 plus 360 again. We already know that 198 plus 360 is 558. So it would be 558 plus 360, which would give us 918. All of these angles are coterminal with 198. So what you have to do to find other coterminal angles is just add or subtract 360. Okay, last thing we're going to do is we're going to determine if these two angles, so 40 and 680, are coterminal. The way you do this is we have to subtract them. It doesn't matter which one you subtract. So I'm just going to take the bigger one and subtract my smaller one. So if I go 680 and I subtract 40, 680 minus 40 is 640. And we have to see, is this a multiple of 360? The easiest way to tell is to divide it by 360, and if we get an even number, or not an even number, but a number that comes out, a perfect number, I guess, if it comes out without any decimals, then it is a multiple, and then it would be coterminal. So let's look at this. So if we do 640, we divide that by 360. We do 640 divided by 360. That gives us 1.77 repeating. That is not a perfect number. That is not an even number. So those two angles would not be coterminal. If this was to come out to be like, let's say it came out to be 2. This is just hypothetical, but if that was to come out to be 2, then those two angles would be coterminal. So you always subtract them, and then you divide it by 360, and if it comes out as an even number, then it's coterminal. Okay, so the big takeaways from this video are that coterminal angles always terminate at the same terminal side. So they end at the same spot. And then another thing is to find coterminal angles, if you're given an angle, you just have to add or subtract 360 to that angle and you'll find the other coterminal angles. And then to determine if you're given two angles and you're asked to determine if the angles are coterminal, you have to find the difference and then divide by 360. If you get an even number out, or a perfect number, a number without a decimal out, then it is coterminal. If you do not, then it is not coterminal. Cool. So come to class with any questions that you have. Take really good notes. Make sure you write down these big takeaways. These are the biggest things you need to have in your notes for tomorrow. Be ready to come to class and get your homework done, whatever, and take the quiz. Cool. Have a good night.